Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, who is joining us today for the live conversation. I'm happy, yes, to read your waves and hellos. So today we're continuing our therapy couch meetings that we have planned and we have had last week already. For those of you who have joined us last week, unfortunately, we were not able to. It was my mistake. I didn't save the conversation that we have had. So hopefully this time we are gonna correct that mistake and save it to our IGTV. So today we continue our conversation about psychology, psychotherapy, and in a minute, hopefully very soon, a colleague of mine will join the conversation. Yes, so she's here. Our meeting. Her name is Vera Castellanos. She is a trained psychotherapist. Hello, I already started to present you. Hi, Vera.
Hi, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I can hear you and see you very well. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you
It,
for having me.
it's a great pleasure. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Vera. She's my old friend and a colleague. Vera has 6 years of professional experience, clinical experience in the field of psychotherapy. She also owns her master's degree in psychotherapy science and does her training in classical psychoanalysis, which is very beautiful, especially in that city where the psychoanalysis was created in Vienna. And today we are going to talk with Vera about an interesting topic, I believe. However, this topic is less fun, let's say, but more, straight to the point, kind of to talk about the reality of today. So we are going to talk about the feeling of grief during the pandemic and how this grief can be understood from different perspectives. Some people lost their jobs, some people lost their plans or dreams or loved ones. So we are experiencing this loss for almost a year now. And Vera agreed to discuss this topic from the perspective of if that is possible to be, if we can call that grieving and what grief actually means. Am I correct, Vera? Is that the direction that we are taking today?
I think so, yeah. I think we should maybe we can talk a little bit about what it means, for human beings to grieve. And then we can go from there.
Yes, let's start with this one. So could you please tell us what is the overall nature of grief and why we dare to call what is going on now grieving in general? Like what is the nature, what is the background of grief?
Grief is the emotion that accompanies mourning. So I think that is the simplest way of saying it. We are constantly grieving through our lives, recurrent experiences and recurrent losses that we experience, and we tend to think that mourning is just or is mostly linked to the death of someone, like something like someone close to us is death, but also it's also any change, right? It's also transitions, like the very big one we are experiencing since the last year. So I think that's important to leave it clear, and also that mourning is really our psychological response to any loss, to any change. So grieving is the emotion that comes with it, and it's this kind of negotiation that our inner world needs to adjust or to adapt with the reality. or the situation that takes place, right?
So it's a certain process of transition, of changing from one reality to the other reality
Right,
that
right.
we can all grieve. Yes.
I think many times it's like I was saying, right? It's very often linked with someone's death or a change, but there's it can also be um, the not being able to go outside, right? Or the loss of the our new way of living, all the things that we need to think about now, or the loss of hope, or an ideal, or the plans, like you were saying, um, a friendship, or an old self, well, marriage, graduation, so many things that come with this. Uh, I think that's it's important, right? These are the what comes with grief.
So if I understand correctly, you are saying that we, during the pandemic and during the whole situation of lockdown at the moment, and which have started last year, we can also grieve about our normal life as it's a certain change, the process of changing, and we are experiencing this grief, as you said, as an emotion towards what was yesterday, what was on our background, right? And our foreground, kind of what is happening today,
Yes,
is not as pleasant, maybe.
right. And maybe there were also losses in the past before the pandemic that we hadn't really addressed or that we hadn't maybe taken care of, and now we had to. You see what I mean? We were kind of almost forced to take a look at what's going on with ourselves and how we were living and how we want to live and how we want to continue for the future. So I think these are important aspects of it. Yeah.
I agree with you on this one. I also saw that the whole pandemic situation actually triggered in us something that was buried somehow consciously or subconsciously within us before the whole situation happened. And this transition, this process, just made us kind of explode with different emotions and inner experiences that were hidden within us, and now there's a whole field, psychologically speaking, like the whole all that is needed, all the ingredients in order to actually express those emotions and suddenly start to feel all of them.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
But how can individuals actually manage this grief, and is there are there any certain emotions that are related to this grief, and how to manage all of them? Do you have any ideas, recommendations maybe that you share with your clients while you work online as well?
Mm. I think that when it comes to grief, it's something so uh, individual in the sense that um, we all experience it differently, right? We all experience it in our own way. And for example, I remember some years ago, a friend told me that she had a breakup with a friend of hers, and that she slept the whole weekend, and then she was in therapy, and the therapist said, "Don't you think that maybe you were mourning?" And for me, these are examples that let us know that we all have different ways of experiencing it. So it's important that we pay attention and that we start noticing what is our way of grieving. You know what
Hmm.
I mean?
Yes, definitely. But as far as I know, there is also a certain structure of stages of grief that exist out there. that are somehow common between different human beings. Of course, it's very individual depending on what kind of grief you're experiencing. Is that a grief of a loved one? Is that a grief of your career or profession that could not be proceeded due to the situation, or so on? As far as I remember, there are also different stages. What do you think? Are they actually existing, and do you believe in those stages? Can we talk about this a little bit?
Sure, I'm not sure that I know them all by heart, but I think there's denial, I think there's anger, I think there's bargaining,
Yeah.
and so far I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
those ones. Well, in
There's
the end, I
also,
know
I
that
think there's, yes,
I know
exactly,
that.
acceptance.
So interesting, the one that I'm not remembering, but these are, I think that we do experience them, but somehow maybe not in the same order. Maybe we get angry first before before denying what happened, right? Or maybe, I don't know, we start thinking of with the bargaining all the things that we might have done differently. Or I think, yeah, I think they all play probably differently. Someone is saying, I don't believe in those stages. Okay. Um, I think these are emotional reactions that we do experience, right? But maybe the way that these stages are set, maybe this is not for everyone
Yeah.
how they go. I don't know.
Exactly. If you Google grief, most probably you will see all those stages really nicely put it together, kind of telling you what you have to experience at that particular moment. But I agree that they might be mixed up. However, what I see from my experience with clients who undergo grief, it somehow it definitely starts with a certain denial that is out there, because it's difficult to actually agree with the fact that this virus won't affect us, or somehow it doesn't exist. Who told us that corona or COVID-19 actually exists? So let's research a little bit more. Also my experience was a little bit of denial at the beginning, but then, as they say that there is a certain anger that pops into there, I can also imagine, this anger being like, how come I should be isolated now? I haven't yet figured out what that is, and someone is telling me that I cannot work anymore, or I should stay at home with the whole family present. So there's a real frustration and anger that is present. And after that anger, as you said, bargaining.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. If social distance works, then let me try to kind of socially isolate myself a little bit, or wear a mask, right?
Yeah.
But then if
Yeah.
you see that it's not working, that the amount of people is still, rising, and the restrictions are getting stronger and stronger, then you might actually get really upset and depressed with the whole. I'm not saying depression as a diagnosis, but more this feeling of sadness that you are trapped.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot move. You want to travel, but you cannot travel. You have to change all your plans. It's a Christmas time. You cannot celebrate it with your family. Like a lot of kind of unplanned situations and unwanted unwillingness, a certain that might bring a certain sadness. And then in the end, if we take those stages, you actually start to accept, well, oh well, this is happening.
Yeah.
It's pandemia all over the place, and I just have to stay at home and kind of wait until this is all over.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or I need to come up with certain ways, I don't know, to suddenly start to meditate, or to drink relaxation, I don't know, relaxing tea, or come up with some ideas. It's also a certain process of acceptance, right?
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
So
Um,
if we take those stages of grief, maybe some of you do not agree, but they have a certain there's a certain idea of how they work. They can be mixed up, as Vera said.
Right.
We have
And then
one question.
go ahead.
Want to start with a certain level of shock.
Most definitely. Yeah. I think that even if we think of denial as the first or the first response, right? It's saying that no, this didn't happen, you know?
Mm-hmm.
This is your first reaction, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes, first response. Exactly.
your first
But
response.
what can be done actually in order to manage this grief? Like what can we do in our daily lives, let's say, to kind of fight with it?
I think we should see it as an exploration. You know, what I was saying before is that this is what this pandemic has brought us is definitely that we have to learn how to grieve, you know.
Mm.
Also what
Oh,
therapy gives us the space to grieve and to mourn, and I think that this pandemic brought that with us. Losses that maybe we hadn't addressed in the past, now we have to. So if we see it as a journey of self-exploration, we can find out, okay, maybe I'm the person that when I'm feeling grief, I sleep all the time, or maybe I eat, or maybe I don't eat, or maybe I cry, maybe you know, it's about finding out and getting to know yourself and getting to know how it is
okay.
that you respond to grief. I think this is a really important thing because this will help you throughout your life with more situations that will come up, right? So it's a good exercise to know how it is that you as an individual respond to grief in general, right? And I think we should know like more than the stages. Also, we should know that they all bring like every how do I say it? Like losses are a journey through this grief, but also losses revive old losses that we had in the past. But also each loss, when it's fully processed, can help us to grow. You know, and we need to keep that in mind. So these
Interesting. So you're saying we need to process this moment, this period of our lives, the same way as we process any other loss that needs to be processed. Otherwise, it influences us somehow.
I think so, yeah. And I think part of this self-exploration is a little bit like learning, I don't know, learning how you love, you know. This is also something that you learn in therapy, right? What is your way of showing appreciation for someone else? Are you someone that communicates? Are you that does things, gives gifts, or maybe cooks, you know, or maybe you are a person that hugs, right? There are all these languages that we know for love, but I think we can also think about that in order of, like, in order on how to express our grief, you see. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like that, responding to the question you asked, how to deal with it, I think that comes, it's a learning thing. We learn how it is that we respond to that, and through that, we can find what are the best ways to deal with it. You know, maybe I feel good going on a bicycle ride. Maybe I can get in contact with my creativity. I always make sure, like, for me, one of the most important creativity, you know, getting in contact with it, finding ways to express the pain that you're feeling or the sadness or any emotion that you're having, finding that as an outlet in order to say, to express, right? So this
Yes, I
is really
agree with
important.
you absolutely. And I believe that if this grief, if previous griefs are not processed, or if you are not, as Vera said, you don't know, you haven't learned how to grieve, then it might actually bring you to something. So there's an interesting term I want to share with you. It's anticipationary or anticipatory, it's even called grief. When you actually anticipate that something bad is going to happen and you expect, because of your previous experience, that leads you to the sort of ideas that you expect that only worst thing is going to happen.
Yeah.
And then all this fear, grows within us, especially when we turn on the TV, we read news, or we get frustrated by all the information, and then we start to anticipate that, oh, now this is going to happen, because that's how I felt when I was grieving without even knowing that it's called grief before, right?
Yeah. 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 I think that we find we do that. We like a preparation, like a preparation of what's coming, in order to be like anticipation. That it is. Yeah.
Yes, but if we go into this more difficult, let's say, direction of actual funeral and losing loved ones during this period, and not being able to attend funeral, or not being able to go to the hospital to be around people that you care, your significant others, how to go through this loss? How can we process this loss without being able to actually say goodbye to, I don't know, relatives who have passed away in other countries, that there was no connection, let's say, to say last words, to hold a hand and say goodbye?
This
Is
is
there
a
a way?
this is a really I think this is one of the toughest parts of this whole situation because we need space and we need time to grieve. And this is why there are funerals, right? This is why there are rituals, why there are so many ceremonies, things that take place in order to grant us the possibility of having some kind of closure, right? And if this is not there, then we isolate from the, well, we are already isolated, right? But um, it's easier to deny what happened because we don't see the body, because we don't have that symbolic representation of closure, right? Or what it means, what this means in our minds, at least I think. And I think that's why also, it's known that soldiers have such a difficulty mourning, because they have to stay focused. They don't mourn. They have a chance to mourn. And so it, they have to repress their grief in order to,
Repressed grief.
yeah,
Yes, repressed grief.
right?
Hmm.
So this is almost what it sometimes feels like if we don't have that space, if we don't have that that space and give ourselves that time. So maybe a good idea, I think, is that we find ways, since we are far away from people who might have passed away, all these things that are happening now, that we find a way to make our own ritual in order to like celebrate what this person meant to us and make that closure that we're not having the chance to have. So I don't know, I think of people that go to the sea and throw the ashes, for example, but maybe it can be something at home, a small ceremony that symbolizes that. I think these are important things, or maybe music, or maybe um, cooking. I remember my mom used to say this, it was like when she died, someone special to her died. She said she cooked a meal that this person had showed her, so it was her grandmother, and this helped her be close to her. She was long distance, so couldn't really at that time. And this helped her to be close to this person and kind of process some loss. I think these are all sorts of rituals that we can do, and that's also when we have to get creative and find what will be the best way for us to do that process, at least.
Thank you, Vera, for answering this difficult question. It's indeed also for professionals, as all we are human beings. It's super difficult to say exactly how to grieve on the long distance, which is very unnatural situation because usually we would be with the loved ones, and not knowing how you're going to reply and respond to this question. The first thing that also came to my mind, I thought about symbolic representation, like symbolize any way that is possible through cooking, through creating, through pictures, through collages, through videos of that person. Something that like you could put your emotions together with other person kind of idea or imagination, and that's how you create a certain something that would help you to survive until that moment when you will be able to come to the graveyard and bring those symbolic flowers or symbolic stone or whatever that is, just to share a piece of you. You can actually, later when you have a chance to visit your loved ones, you can actually bring this little something to the graveyard. And that's how you will kind of finish this, close the gestalt of bringing the piece of you that you have created and connecting it with the person who was there, who you loved and who cared for you and for who you cared.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And let's kind of wrap it all up with a more positive note, let's say, of self-care and self-love during these times. What fun and what nice we can do in order to help us go through the process of mourning, as you said, or the process of grieving. Can it be nice? Can it be fun, or should it be necessarily like sad or pessimistic?
I think it should have like a combination of both, I think it should have everything, that whatever it is that is coming, whatever it is that we're feeling, we have to like bring it on the table or just set it there and just allow ourselves, allow ourselves to feel, allow ourselves to experience the whole range of emotions that we might be feeling. And I think that it's important that we get a good support system, that we have someone with whom we can talk to, just really express everything that we're feeling and just really be open about it, because if that's also the thing, there's so much shame around grief that it makes it really hard in our society, and I think that we should also encourage, not only as psychotherapists but people in general, to not see this as such a like just really like encourage people to talk about it. And, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I would add to this, guys, like people who are listening and who will listen later on, use your imagination. Our imagination can create wonderful things. I personally, when I go to sleep, I like to imagine myself being somewhere else, or doing something that maybe I would never dare to do, just you can create a whole reality for yourself, especially during this period of time. You can travel mentally. You can remember places where you were before, or buy things that you are not actually buying for yourself because of the, let's say, financial difficulties, whatever. Like, live this, like, create this fairy tale, create a certain magic. If you tell me, oh, what if I get upset or sad about that? Well, then take this emotion, like experience what is this sadness related to and what is this about.
Mhm.
But actually, our brain, like our psyche, can be just magical.
Yeah, do something with those feelings, right? No matter whether they are uncomfortable, unpleasant, just it's about that, that's why creativity is so important here. Like we mentioned before, I think we can also, like when you're saying traveling, right? There are so many people that we know that maybe have never left the country in which they grew up in, but they have traveled through literature, they have read, they have all this knowledge. And so the arts are really important. Or also, many times I think, yeah, artists, I say in general, of how they have, because they are really the masters of sublimating uncomfortable or painful feelings and putting and doing something grandiose with that. So find out about techniques, and how they did it. And I have lots of appreciation for the gift of art, because it's really interesting to see how they've all done it.
Hmm.
And
So
the
there are a lot to learn from around, yes, and from books, from art, from movies. Okay, thank you, Vera. Thank you so much for being, brave to bring up this topic to talk about it because I assume that it's, not all of us would agree to talk about this, especially yeah, it's uncomfortable conversation, right? But it's absolutely needed to be brought up and thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing some advices and ideas with us.
Thank you for giving me the space. Thank you, really.
And
I
thank you
enjoyed
guys
it.
for thank you and thank you for joining us. We are going to have another discussion next week, next Wednesday at 4 p.m. GMT. And I hope that you are all also going to join us and enjoy next conversation. I will not tell you yet what it's going to be about, but let's see you here on Tokitus Instagram platform. And now I have to save this video properly.
I'll try here, so we have to ban it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you and goodbye. See you next week.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Vera. Thank you.